What are they doing differently? I'm sure you have those friends who it feels like study for 2 hours whilst you study for 8 hours, and yet they still get better grades than you on tests. They're not superhuman, they're not necessarily more intelligent than you are, they're just studying slightly smarter. And I know you've heard study smarter, not harder all of the time. But right now, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what that means, and I'm going to be telling you how you can improve your grades whilst studying less. Now, I want to clarify, by study less, I mean spending less time at your desk studying. I don't mean getting more distracted whilst you're studying, not having intense study sessions. These study sessions are going to be intense. They are going to test you, but they are not going to take as long as your current study sessions are, because they are so much more efficient. They get to the point. They teach you what you need to know, and they don't deal with all the fluff, and they don't let you stop and scroll every 10 seconds. Can you commit to that? Okay, let me tell you how. First things first, we are going to study the way the exam is going to test you. If the exam is essay-based, if there are essays all over this exam paper, you're going to study by writing essays. And I know a lot of people do not like to do that. They don't like to write practice essays. But why would you not be studying in the way that you're going to be graded and assessed? Not studying in that way is pointless. You wouldn't study for maths, having never done a maths practice question before, would you? No, that's inherent, and you understand studying the way that the exam tests you because you understand it for subjects like maths, or at least I hope you do. I hope you do practice questions whilst you're studying for mathematics. If you don't, well, we're starting from square one, and that's fine. But you need to take a look at some past exam papers. Don't necessarily read the questions in that much depth if you're not planning on doing them there and then, because that can sort of, hold you back later on when you do want to actually study them and do them under timed conditions. But just have a look at the way that you're being assessed. For a subject like A-level economics, for example, there's a mixture of multiple choice questions, short answer questions, and essays. What does that mean for how you should be studying? Well, it means you should be trying to do every single multiple choice question that has ever been published for this exam board for this subject, because why else? How else are you going to get the practice of doing these multiple choice questions? It means you want to have a good familiar grasp of how to do these short answer questions, and for these, perhaps the exam papers might be your only source of them. And for the essays, you want to be writing loads of essays. For a subject like physics, chemistry, or biology, you have an abundance of practice questions. Do as many as possible so you get familiar with as many different question styles as possible. What this means in practice is it means that you don't waste that much time just learning content, particularly where you can use non-past paper based practice questions. As I say, there are plenty for maths, there are plenty for the sciences, plenty for geography and history. It might be harder for subjects like English where you've got a specific text, but that's fine because you can make up questions because they're essay based. Study the way the test will test you. Secondly, you knew that this was coming. We're going to eliminate literally all passive studying. If you're reading, you're going to be using SQ4R. If you're watching a video, you're going to use SQ4R. You need to be active all of the time, constantly question the material, never just read, never just highlight, because these can be effective. I'm not saying they're never effective, but I am saying they're not efficient. They are not the best use of your time, and if you want to study less and still improve your grades, passive studying goes out of the window. We're being active. We're using the Feynman technique, the whiteboard technique, the lightness system, flashcards, active recall, spaced repetition, everything that actually engages your brain consistently. Number 3, this might sound ever so slightly counterintuitive, but we want focused sprints. We don't want marathon study sessions. We don't want to be doing 3 hours in one go, just going for it, super intense, because that's going to be super intense and wonderful for the first 45 minutes to an hour. And then you're going to crash, because your brain will crash. You might not feel it, but you're not going to be able to retain as much information, and this study session is not going to be as effective and efficient as it could be. How can we improve that? Well, we can study for 45 minutes, and then we can have a break for an hour or two, and then we're going to do another 45 minutes. But for that entire block, the time that you sit down and say, okay, the next 45 minutes, the next 50 minutes, the next hour, I wouldn't go any higher than an hour. Unless you're doing a past paper, of course, then do it under timed conditions. But if you're not doing a past paper, don't go any higher than an hour. And you're going to say to yourself, okay, my phone is going to be in a complete other room. I'm going to get rid of all distractions. This time that I'm spending right now, pure studying, pure focus. That's the way that you really need to be thinking about these sessions. Number 4, we need to learn to prioritize. The Pareto principle basically tells you, and this works for the vast majority of subjects, pretty much every single one, even if you don't think about it initially, 80% of your results is coming from 20% of the content. Because 20% of the content requires deep understanding and it underpins other areas of the content. So it might offshoot into a separate branch that feels very distinct, but is based on the same underlying principles as something else. And that is the 20% that you want to be focusing on. It can be really hard to identify it. Yes, I'm not going to pretend that there's a secret formula to identifying this, and for subjects such as maths, this isn't really the case. But for pretty much every subject other than maths, give or take, for science this is more topic-based than over the subject as a whole. But if you think of it as, for example, you break your science, physics, for example, into 7 different topics, each of those topics, the 80%, 20% principle applies. But for whole subjects like English or history, this principle really does apply. Try your hardest to identify key themes, key ideas that keep cropping up, and really focus on them. And it's going to be hard to do this if you're not doing past papers. So try and space past papers out. Leave 4 or 5 to do sort of 1, 2, 5, 7, maybe 10 days before the exam. But other than that, try and do a couple of past papers right after you've covered all the content, so you get a little bit of an understanding as to what themes keep coming up. Or just ask your teachers, that's what they're there for. 5, do not over-review what you already know. You already know a bunch of the content, and it's going to feel really great, really reassuring for you to constantly review that bit of the content, because you feel good, because you're getting the questions right, because you're checking and understanding that you have. And that's amazing, and we all want to feel good about our knowledge, and we all want to feel like we already know stuff. But that is preventing you from focusing in on those harder topics, and even on those medium topics where you're almost there but you just need a bit of an extra push. Don't over-review stuff you know. If it feels like this is easy, I'm getting everything right, move on. You need to be prioritizing, and this will get easier with time. Once you've done it a couple of times for a few tests, you're going to be right on your way to being able to do it really effectively for exams. Never ever skip a break. Breaks are your best friend, and make sure these breaks are proper breaks. Don't just sort of have a break that is you picking up your phone and starting to scroll, because that is not effective. Get up, leave your environment, get some fresh air, have a walk, get a drink, get a snack, do something that completely lets your brain relax and lets it sort of digest, as it were, the content that you have just taken in. And those are genuinely all the tips you need. If you follow each of these tips, if you actually take the time to genuinely put them into practice, you're going to be able to cut down your study time, and you are going to see a significant improvement in your grades. Let me know how it goes, and I'll see you in the next video.